Just been letting Soseki stew for... Not again. Not again. Not again. Not again! Yes, again. Welcome back. Well then, Mr. Natsume. It would appear you're going to have to accompany me down to the yard. Again. But wait! Hold your horses! Yes? Door, key, locked, entry, exit, entirely impossible. You're so flustered he's even being stranger than normal. What? Think that's an alibi? You just made a copy. What? You live in the same building after all. You'd have had plenty of opportunities, I'm sure. But... Maybe. Alright, sir, you'll get your chance to give your side of the story later. The facts speak for themselves, Mr. Mustache. You horrible hairlock Sholmes. Really has found himself an arch rifle now, hasn't he? I'm on now, no dilly-dallying. Outside, it's a carriage waiting. Welcome, student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. I never imagined I'd be in this position again, but... You have to help me! Please! Please! I'm innocent! Alright, I understand. We'll come to your cell later and talk about it. And one more thing. Oh, yes? My poor little kitty cat. He's giving his breakfast for me. And so, his evil curse still apparently unbroken. Soseki-san found himself once again the prime suspect in the case of murder. Thanks to the incriminating deduction of the great detective. My dear fellow, that honor belongs to you. Thanks. Well, at least that means Inspector Gregson is no longer here. We can examine the crime scene in more detail now. Yes, that's right. And of course. What? Have you forgotten what the inspector mentioned before? It was the landlord, Mr. Garadeb, who discovered Mr. Shamsphere. Ah, Mr. John Garadeb, yes. I expect we could find him in his sitting room on the top floor as usual. Right. You must remember to go and talk to him later then. And here we have another disproportionately large machine. This looks like a meter of some kind. Ah, this is a gas meter, I think. It seems that in this district, residents pay for gas as they use it with coins. Ah, I see. Yes, now you've pointed it out. You can see that there's a slot just here that looks like it would take a coin. So you mean if you put a coin in there? That's right. That would buy you about 2 hours of gas for lights and heating. So if you were a poor person with no money, you'd have to sleep with the freezing cold? Yes, if you were a scatterbrained with no change because you forgot to exchange your money at the bank. Thank goodness there's no meter in our office. That's concerning. There's the old windows. As you've seen from the outside, the window is completely bricked up. A vestige of the former window tax that Britons had to pay. Strange things they used to tax here in Great Britain. I mean, making people pay for the number of windows they had in the property? It's extraordinary. It's heartbreaking to think of the poor having to block up their windows just to avoid an unaffordable tax. Oh. What is it, Miss Fusado? If you look closely, a number of the bricks are loose. Oh? Oh, soap? Oh, yes. It looks as though an amateur has broken out a few of them before, just here. Was it Mr. Shamsphere who did it, I wonder? Being the lodge are renting this room. Look at this, Mr. Naruhodo. On the outside, there's a little ledge. There's something on it. What? Outside? Ah. It's so cold outside. You can feel it through this gap. It did snow all last night. It would be cold. But more importantly, what is it on the ledge out there? What are these snow-covered lumps? It's more bars of soap? Soap? What are bars of soap doing lined up on a ledge outside the window? I have no idea. But the pair of them look rather charming like that. Still, that's very strange, isn't it? Bars of soap lined up outside the window. I think perhaps we should take one. There are two, after all. Oh dear. I suppose we could. Oh, what's this? Look here at this soap. Ah! Do you see, in the middle there? There's a patch that's a different color. It's sort of transparent, but some sort of fancy design, I suppose. Only in Great Britain. It looks like the Hinomato flag of Japan, doesn't it? Oh, wonderful. It's probably a very expensive brand. If memory serves me correctly... Hinomato Ball of the Sun. So it's essentially the Japanese flag. It's officially called the Nishoki Flag of the Sun, more commonly known as the Hinomato Ball of the Sun. Expensive? And what's it doing in this ramshackle old room? Bar of soap? Look at all these extravagant, bright costumes. Somehow they look out of place in this room, with its grim, shady goings-on. This one looks like a king's attire. A king? I've always dreamt of being a king. Oh, I think it'd be more suited to a feudal lord, a daimyo. A daimyo, or such like. Daimyo? Why am I blanking on the pronunciation of that? With a chonmage top knot, every Japanese man wishes he had a chonmage. You look wonderful with one. You already have the sword. Can you imagine what would happen if I walked around the streets of London with a chonmage and a sword? Being that it's London, they would probably not take it well. But the other soap? Oh, this is something different. What's this? It looks like part of an envelope, I think. It would undoubtedly be a badass look for you, Naruhodo. Part of an envelope. Yes, I think you may be right. Perhaps it was torn off when the letter was open. Is that significant? Well, it's a little out of place, perhaps. When you look around the room, there's no sign of a letter or the rest of the envelope, in fact, is there? Ah, she's right. Yet here we have the torn off end of an envelope. It just strikes me as unusual. I agree. I better take this just in case. Alright. Why do you have a Willy Wonka ad up top there? There's not much on these shelves, is there? Just this wine glass and bottle. And both of them are cracked. Yeah, not much use, are they? Are they? Yeah, I can't talk right today. What's the matter? Oh, I was just reminded of the Reaper, that's all. Ah, prosecutor of Lord Van Zeeks? Yes, he's so reckless with his wine glasses. I was thinking it's a waste that he should donate some to the needy. You could suggest it next time we meet. Honestly, I'd love to see Susanoo suggest that. Like, not for the see how he would react, but... I mean, yes, for the see how he would react, but... I think if Susanoo did it, she could probably guilt him into it. Let's be real here. This is a gas wall light, isn't it? It must be connected to the gas pipe at the wall. Gas lights, a gas stove. London really is a city of gas. Now that I think about it, Mr. and Mrs. Garadev had an open fire on the top floor, didn't they? Oh yes, you're right. I don't recall seeing a gas stove up there. I must prefer a real fire anyway. It's so much cozier. This is some sort of makeshift stage, I think, is it? Isn't it? Where does the audience sit, though? The nightly Shakespeare performances. Just aspiring to the great stage must practice their art, Mr. Naruhodo, with or without an audience. In fact, on a related note, perhaps you should set up a mock bench for the defense in your office. What? Yeah, then you could practice your art every single day. I'll think about it. If you promise to don a beard and play the role of the judge. Well, if that would help you achieve your goal. This I have to see. That would be adorable. Judge Susanna presiding. Oh, I haven't actually examined you yet, have I? Oh, the poor man. So young to die. I suppose it was a very painful death, being poisoned as he was. I don't know. What we can do now is hope he'll be reborn to a better life. Yes, I suppose you're right. I wonder. Do you think that putting our hands together in a Japanese prayer will help a British soul? Sorry? I made sure I had a reference at the ready just for such an occasion as this myself. Actually, this book is entitled The Beginner's Guide to Praying for the Departed. The British way. The British way? I'll just reread it now. One moment. There's quite a spine on that book, isn't there? It's interesting. Ah. One of the teacups that Mr. Shamspeare and his guest drank from last night. But don't go drinking from them, Mr. Naruhodo. There's a bit of poison inside. I'm not planning on drinking any, don't worry. Anyway, the cups are both empty. That's true. So one was Mr. Shamspeare's, and the other must be the cup that Mr. Natsume was drinking from. But Soseki-san wasn't poisoned, of course. Perhaps you should take these so we can examine them in more detail later. Oh, we're done. Looks like you're having a good snoop around, eh? Uh-oh. Inspector Gregson, back so soon? After I threw that little Japanese fella in the clink, I went and reported this to the investigation division. 5 minutes time, this place will be corroded, hoarded off by the yard. Oh, I see. Well, we'd better be leaving then. Poor Mr. Natsume must be feeling very low being back in a cell again so soon. I'm sure we should probably go and... What's wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? We have raised the dead. Yeah! Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player. That struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Now, how soundeth the next part? It's a tale, told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Indeed, oh happy day. What? Walking Dead! The fella isn't dead at all. What was that nonsense he was saying, though? I think... Yes, it was from William Shakespeare's Macbeth. A soliloquy from Act 5, Scene 5. Shakespeare. So it was. But the victim, Mr. William Shakespeare, came back to life. If the man had indeed been poisoned, it transpired that it hadn't killed him. He was taken by emergency carriage to a nearby hospital for treatment. And Inspector Gregson evicted us from the scene of the crime. Whatever that now was. Curious indeed. Briar Road. What do you think will happen now? Good question. What a strange situation for Mr. Natsume. Arrested for murder, but then the victim comes back to life. I think perhaps the victim was never dead in the first place. It so seems very likely that Mr. Shamsphere did consume poison as we deduced. But was it an accident, attempted suicide, or attempted murder? Until the truth can be established, I imagine the police will keep Mr. Natsume in custody. I suppose so. Let's hope it doesn't come to anything more than a night in the cells. Oh, what's this? What's that man doing over there? Looks like he's trying to seed into Soseki-san's lodgings. Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, excuse me. Could we have a word? He just ran off. I feel certain I've seen that man somewhere before. Where was it? Saw him arguing with Shamsphere in case 4 the last game. I do too, but I don't remember. New location? I can go talk to Mr. Garadeb. Here we are again, the eccentric landlord's eccentric top-floor abode. We're here because Mr. Garadeb's the one who discovered the incident this morning. Don't forget. Hello. Ah, you chaps, eh? Yes, good morning, sir. Thank you for your cooperation in court yesterday. It was quite a trial. As much for Mr. Garadeb as for anyone, really. Came straight back here after all the business at the Bailey yesterday. Didn't expect to wake up to more bally nonsense this morning. I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us exactly what happened, Mr. Garadeb? Yes, I suppose you'd like to know all about that. Dead loss of an actor, chap guy in the ground floor room. Those were exactly Mr. Gregson's words, weren't they? Dr. Gregson's words, weren't they? Oh. In person. Alright. Mr. Garadeb, could I show you this? I've been quite a couple of days, as you can imagine. Afraid I'm rather tired. I haven't really got the energy in the old eyeballs, to be honest with you. Some other time, then. There's a single apron drying on that enormous cannon-shaped clothes horse. Look. Cannon-shaped clothes horse. No, Mr. Naruhodo, that's a real cannon. I knew that. I was just testing you. Piece of history, that is. Seen plenty of action out on the battlefield, I can tell you. Now the old girl and I are just enjoying the peace and quiet of retirement together. And of course, she'd come in handy if the enemy decided to launch an attack again. Is there more going on that I don't know about? You look very dashing in your uniform there, Mr. Garadeb. Ah, that old portrait, eh? Drawn by an art student who used to rent the room downstairs. Oh? Oh, you look so wonderfully young and courageous and strong. Yes, well, the chap presented it to me one day and asked if I'd let him off the month's rent in return. Oh, I see. So, you did, presumably. Fuck no. There was ass out. I bally well did not. Landlords. Oh. Portrait is a portrait, but rent is rent, eh? Yet it's still there proudly on the wall. Landlords, am I right? Good to see Mr. Garadeb's Medal of Honor still proudly displayed on the wall. The inscription reads, for distinguished participation, if you remember. Yes, I remember. Because I remember thinking even I might stand a chance of picking up honors like that. Wouldn't know what to look at me now, perhaps, but I had my devil-may-care days, you know. Devil-may-care. What did you get up to? Shenanigans. And things. Well, all in the past now, of course. And best left there. Best not, I want to know now. Ah yes, those enormous mortar shells. It's quite something seeing them up close, isn't it? Didn't you say something about firing them into the barracks, Mr. Garadeb? Ah, you remember, do you? Just a little mishap that occurred during training one day. What are you doing fighting on your own men? The captain bellowed at me. I'm not surprised. A little mishap doesn't really do it justice, does it? Well, one has these little incidents when one's a hot-headed young private. Perhaps I should put some evidence in that results from one of my little mishaps on display. Oh, does the great lawyer, like the great detective, want to exhibit some trophies of his finest moments? What I'm learning here is that you're not nearly as distinguished as you might think. That's your military uniform, isn't it, Mr. Garadeb? Well, ceremonial garb, yeah. Been hanging on the wall ever since my retirement bash. Not in active service now, you know. Doesn't mean much to me anymore. You could have the old thing if you wanted it. Well, it might suit Lord Van Zeeks, perhaps. An overly ostentatious outfit like this could be just what he needs. Very tactful, Mr. Zato. Very tactful indeed. Oh, a copy of Rand's magazine. The Adventures of Herlock Sholmes is being read all over London. Isn't it wonderful? Ah, naturally, one asks oneself if such a singular detective could really exist. Having met the chap, it's undeniable. He is most certainly singular. Singularly dangerous. That's genuine public opinion for you, Mr. Zato. Perhaps it should be reflected in these stories. Make no mistake, Mr. Naruhodo. I intend to snuff out the sort of public opinion we just heard personally. I'm starting to see where Mr. Sholmes' untainted reputation comes from now. Aggressive fanboyism. These shelves look like they've been completely torn apart by a wild beast. Reminds me of the Battle of Maiwand, don't you know? Ah, the experiences of a seasoned veteran. And we had us surrounded on all sides. We really thought we were done for, the whole bally company. They were taking a real pounding from their cannons, so all we could do was run for our lives. Oh. I thought the story was going in a different direction, actually. Well, the whole experience taught me one thing, I can tell you. When you're done for, you're really done for. That's not what a lawyer who often finds himself under fire wants to hear. Very depressing advice. It's a good view of the wintry East End from up here. It's an oppressively grey scene. It's really nothing comparable in Japan. And down below, Briar Road, partly blanketed in snow. And the pavement where poor Miss Green was struck in the back by that knife. Thinking about it, this is the only room in this building that actually has a window to the outside world. Sometimes Great Britain really does seem like a strange land, doesn't it? I suppose all foreign culture seems strange at first. Imagine how an Englishman would feel on arriving in Japan and seeing people with a Chon-Mage top knot. Not again. Well, that's a good point. We need Daimyo Ryunosuke here. We know where that screen is hiding now. The aftermath of a fiery altercation the other day. I don't suppose I'll be able to clear that mess up for some time now. Oh dear. This must be a very difficult situation for you. I'll say. People talk about twists of fate and whatnot. But this is a twist and a half. Rotten show all round. It's clearly struggling with everything that's happened. That's an impressive collection of cakes in that fancy silver cake stand there. I feel sure that it was full of cakes when we first investigated in here as well. Yeah, that's quite right. I haven't touched it since. I haven't done much at all, really, since it happened. Time's rather stood still for me, you know? Oh. Time has stood still? Oh, that's an interesting phrase. Might be able to use that excuse when I'm next supposed to be tidying the office. Ah. You could just tidy up, Mr. Naruhodo. Once again, reading my mind. Alright, back to business. It's been a real shock for you this morning. I hear that you discovered what happened. Ah, well, that hopeless actor chap rises at 5 o'clock sharp every morning without fail. At 5:30 this morning, he still hadn't lit the gas. So I went down and knocked on his door, but no bally answer. That's when you broke into his room by kicking down the door? Well, I called on that rum-looking Japanese chap to do the grunt work, of course. Was it a little premature to kick the door down? Man could have just overslept by half an hour. That's very true, Mr. Naruhodo. If 30 minutes oversleeping warranted such behavior, I'd have to kick your door down every morning. Yeah. Well, you know, better to be safe than sorry and all that. Just be or is he avoiding our gaze now all of a sudden? Curious. Except that it was a sorry situation indeed that you found on the far side of the door. The victim's name is Mr. Shakespeare, I believe. Is that right? Yeah, William Shakespeare. Took the ground floor room 3 months ago now. And how would you describe him? In a word, destitute. Destitute? Well, let's face it, the only redeeming feature of that room is the cheap rent. Anyone wanting to live in a place like that is either broke or else a bally screw loose. So hard to choose which category Soseki-san would fall into. Oh. Mr. Naruhodo, that's a little rude. Stop reading my mind. He was doing research as well. Research? Into what? Shakespeare, of course. Shakespeare. Read a few plays of the old bastard myself, you know. Romeo and Hamlet and all that. Ah, yes. The old Yowie play, Romeo and Hamlet. Yes, William Shakespeare's Hamlet is England's most highly regarded classical playwright and author. He's known as Sao in Japanese, as you know. Many of his works have already been translated. It seems incredible that Shakespeare was shortened to Sao, though. Someone was too heavy-handed there. There were a lot of costumes in the victim's room, actually, weren't there? Of course, Mr. Natsume is a scholar of English literature as well. Imagine he and Mr. Shakespeare would have had much in common. Shakespeare interpretation disagreement leads to shocking murder. Let's hope it's not that. Oh boy. Mr. Naruhodo, really, how rude. Stop reading my mind! It's probably written all over my face, though. After Mr. Natsume's trial yesterday, you came straight back here, I believe, didn't you? Did you notice anything so strange between then and this morning? Well, now. Must have been about 6 in the evening by the time I got home. Snow was coming down rather heavily, as I remember, and it was completely dark already. That failed actor chap was out at the time. Mr. Garadeb noticed that there was no light in his room or something, I suppose. Couldn't summon the energy for anything much, so I just sat in front of the fire up here. It was after 8 before Shakespeare got back. The chap was up until past 1 in the morning, I'll have you know. Suppose he met his end sometime after that. I was asleep by then, so I'm rather in the dark here. Well, thank you. This was very illuminating. Is everything alright, Miss Uzato? Well, I was just thinking it's a little strange, that's all. Mr. Garadeb, you were up here in your room all evening, if I've understood correctly. Not a big fan of stairs. This blasted leg. Then, how is it that you seem to know? The precise movements of your tenant on the ground floor, I mean. What? That's a very good point. I can't imagine that you could hear noises from the ground floor all the way up here. Does this old man like to spy on his tenants? Is that it? I say, I know what you're thinking, and it's a bally outrage. I'm ex-military, don't you know? Don't go around spying on my tenants, why would I? Then how did you know, Mr. Garadeb? It was the gas woman. The gas tells me everything. The gas. Speaking gas? What on earth do you mean, sir? How could the gas tell you anything, let alone everything? Well, as you're probably aware, the gas is supplied to the building by pipes. Yes, I'd more or less worked that out. Well, he did say something in his dialogue about turning on the gas, about getting up at 5 a.m. and the gas turning on. Yes, I'd more or less worked that out. Oh, I love that animation of hers. Every room in the building is connected by a single pipe to the gas main outside, and the gas company supplies gas to properties via the main. Yes, I understand that too. Let me see if I can explain. Let's say I was to light the gas lamps up here. What do you suppose would happen? Well, obviously, the room would get brighter. Exactly. At the same time, the lights in all the other rooms of the house would dim for a moment. What? They dim? Why? Sucking away gas from the current flow to a new destination. So it reduces the flow of gas to the other lamps that are currently being run until the flow to the new lamp on is established. This is my very vague fluid dynamics. Perhaps it's because when you light a gas lamp, it briefly uses more gas than usual, and it reduces the amount of gas in the pipe for the other lamps that are connected to it. That might explain why the other lamps dim momentarily, mightn't it? Yes, of course. So everything's connected to a single supply pipe. Is it supposed to happen, though? It sounds rather undesirable. Jolly good point. Fact is, the gas company's pipes in these parts are pretty hopeless, long worn out. Barely got any gas in them to start with. Opposite's also true, of course. Extinguish the lamps up here and they glow brighter in the rest of the house. Ah, right, I see. So by watching the flickering of the lamps in one room, you can determine what's happening elsewhere. There, you've got it. Oh, of course. Because when people come back home in the evening and before they go to sleep at night, what they're guaranteed to do is either light or put out their lamps and fires. Clever. Point of fact, the room on the ground floor and the one above it use slightly different amounts of gas. And watching the lights in here closely, I can work out almost exactly what's going on with the whole house. Gosh! That's fascinating, Mr. Garradeb. Absolutely fascinating. Oh, well, nothing to it, really. I can't really see how that's going to help us with the case, either. What I'd like to know is why Mr. Garradeb is so interested in what his tenants are up to in the first place. I feel like there's more to it than idle curiosity. We've done as much investigating here as we can, I think. There's a lot of idle curiosity so far. Natsume's hiding something. Olive Green is a painter who doesn't particularly have any reason to be in this area of London, a poorer area of London. And Mr. Garradeb rented used to rent one of these flats to a painter. Perhaps we ought to go to the prison again, speak with Mr. Natsume again. Good idea. Ciao. Not been at the moment. Even when they're a little worse for wear, English rooms are so splendidly colorful. This is where poor Miss Green was struck down. What a relief that she's going to be all right. We'll leave Miss Green be for a while. Do you know, I don't believe we visited this... Okay, that's our hint that we need to go here. There he is. There's the boy. There is the boy, E. E. He's 33. Ah. Good old John. Look, Mr. Naruhodo. Mr. Natsume, have the police finished questioning you yet? Welcome, student Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. Oh, yes? What is he? Tell me. Is he a ghost? Is he here to haunt me? Let me guess, you're talking about Mr. Sholmes. He actually calls himself a great detective, Mr. Natsume. Not a ghost. But his diabolic deductions, they're not of this world. They've left me. Ah, cursed. I'm cursed, I tell you. That sort of hurts. Credit where credit is due, Mr. Naruhodo. You were heavily involved in the deduction, too. Yes, moving on. We have some wonderful news. Oh? The victim that we all thought was dead has come back to life again. Now, in the absolutely worst case, you could only be tried for attempted murder. That's great, isn't it, Mr. Natsume? It's terrible. Oh. I'm stuck in the cell, suffering for some silly wrong with the stick. Chop. You did it, didn't you? Confess. You're a killer. Why the mustache? Constant questions. I'm sorry to hear that. Ah, that selfish shyster. Make up your mind. Are you dead or alive? If you were going to come back to life, why you bother dying? Wickedy, wishy-washy villain, William. Well, it seems like then Mr. Shamspeare was never actually dead in the first place. Ah, yes, that might make sense. And I'm pleased that he's alive, of course. Our lively debate last night was much fun. I'd be sad to think it was our last. Oh! Oops. Natsume? Does this mean that you did see the victim last night? You met Mr. Shamspeare, didn't you? I'm not saying another word. I demand to have a lawyer present. Who do you think I am? Please, Mr. Natsume, we need to hear your side of the story. Why am I cursed like this? Alright. Have I shown you this before, Mr. Natsume? Oh, yes. Sweet, sweet aroma of our beloved homeland. Shows the wearer is a defense lawyer. It means nothing in Great Britain, of course, but I still wear it. Oh, I know exactly how you feel, Locum Steward Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. My Haramaki belly band. You don't feel right without it. Your Haramaki belly band? It's perfect for the cold English winters. Just the thing to keep my tummy warm. Yes, I see the link. Almost. Can you tell us exactly what happened last night, then, Mr. Natsume? There's nothing to tell. But, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, I'm eternally grateful to you for helping me with that accursed case yesterday. The case that saw poor Miss Green hospitalized after she ended up with a knife in her back. It's hard to believe that was only yesterday. After the trial was over, I trudged my weary way back to my lowly lodgings. That evening at 9:30, must have been, I visited Mr. Shamspeare. So you did go to the victim's room, then? As we feared. I didn't do anything wrong. Never been to his room before. It was the first time. Then what made you decide to go? I bumped into him when I arrived back at the house. We got chatting and it developed into a discussion. But he had to go out, so I bade him farewell. That ties in with what Mr. Yaradeb said. The victim went out and came back after 8. We met again later in the evening, at around 9, or just after, when I took him some nice tea I'd brewed as a gift. So it was you who brought the tea that had clearly been drunk at the scene, then? And I suppose you were discussing the works of Shakespeare, weren't you? Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Romeo and Juliet. Who was the stronger? It was a delightful debate. Who would have won in a fight? I'm sure. Such a stimulating subject, Shakespeare. And the debate became very heated. So you slipped poison in Mr. Shamspeare's tea? No, never. Not at all. Team Juliet won. That was me. When I left his room. The flamboyant fellow was fighting fit. I swear it. Categorically. Team Juliet won. Hell yeah. Mr. Mr. Natsume, you often say the same thing about yourself, I've noticed. That you have a cursed existence. I'm sure I've mentioned this to you before, but I've been here in Great Britain for a year now, and in that time I've learned that it's no place for me. It can be very trying to live in a foreign land and adapt to the ways of another culture. There are foreigners everywhere I look, and they all stare at me. They all laugh. That's the impression I get whenever I go out. It makes me scared to leave my room. Which is why I become a recluse. Even in my room, I find no respite from my fears. I've moved more times than I can remember. Then 1 week ago, I moved into Briar Road. And why? I mean, why did you choose that place? Doesn't seem very comfortable. Because the rent is cheap. I have so little money, it smoked me. The rent? Obviously, there's a reason why it's cheap. Because the room is cursed. Cursed? Cursed how? Previous occupant, the man who lived there before I took the room, died there. Oh no. He was only a young man, but one morning he was found dead, and no one could explain why. Surely no one would want to live in a room with a history like that. I didn't. The letting agent recommended this place, I wavered. But I want books, and books cost money. A horrible history is a small price to pay. When I realized it would mean I could buy more books, I signed the lease like lightning. Brave? Or blinkered? After I moved in, I soon came to realize what I'd done. I realized how horrible that room's history really was. Gosh, was it really so awful? How did the room's horrible history affect you, Mr. Natsume? What happened? At first, it was just a feeling. Feeling of beady eyes boring into my back, watching me. You think that might have just been your mind playing tricks on you? No. My mind doesn't know any tricks. It was someone else. It's been one long nightmare ever since I was given the keys to the place. A nightmare? You've been having bad dreams, you mean? Oh, all the souls who died in that room. I lean over me in my sleep and try to strangle me. That really is horrible. And now I come to think of it, it happened again last night, too. The very same night that Mr. Shakespeare was writhing in agony for the poison in his body. I was on the verge of being suffocated silently by those miserable spirits in my room. You simply must move out of that room as soon as possible. Yes, you're right, I know it. That's why. I'm already searching. The next room with a history I'll have to call home. I think perhaps you should try to avoid accommodation with any kind of history at all. Otherwise, I'm scared that you yourself may become history. Ooh, Susato-san knows how to make the man listen. Of course. Mr. Lord of the Manor is worried about the curse in my room as well. Oh, how nice of you, Mr. Garaneb. So Mr. Garaneb is worried about the curse in your room as well. You mean Mr. Garaneb? Yes, he knows that if people keep dying, they will never be able to rent it out again. Well, that's true. I, for one, wouldn't go near the place. Perhaps. That may explain why the landlord pays so much attention to the gas lamps and his tenants' movements. You mean because he's worried about their well-being? He does seem to have an unusually keen interest in the amount of gas in the pipes. Must be a reason why he keeps such close tabs on the occupants of his let rooms. What do you mean he pays so much attention to the gas lamps? Oh dear, no. Nothing to do with you, Mr. Natsume. Please forget I said anything. Oh, now you're talking about me behind my back as well. What's important is that Mr. Shakespeare isn't in fact dead at all. Once he's come round and he's able to tell us what happened, we'll be able to get you released. Yes, please. Oh, I do hope you're right. Excuse me? Inspector Gregson. couldn't help overhearing what you just said. And on that note, I have some good news and some bad news. Oh, which do you want first? Always, every time. The bad news comes first. I hope it's all you have. Hold on to it. That's my guiding principle. Alright, well, in that case, good news it did. You fucker. Huh? Sorry, it's just a lot easier to explain everything that way. Huh. And why'd you ask me my preference? Illusion of choice, my boy. You might have heard the victim, Mr. Shakespeare, is just unconscious. He's come round now. Yes, we saw it happen in all its terrifying glory. He's still being treated by the doctors, but we managed to get a written statement from him already. Oh, isn't that wonderful, Mr. Natsume? Oh, thank goodness. It's all over then. I can leave this somber cell. Bad news. Alright, no. Let's start the cards. What? Why have I not, Inspector? Bad news. Mr. Shakespeare has implicated someone as being responsible for what happened last night. Implicated someone? Oh dear. You don't mean... Sorry to say I do, yes. He's pointed the finger at you, Mr. Natsume. Ah! My sweet poison did he seeketh to end my life. But wickedest cat in the caitiff, Soseki Natsume. Oh. I'm afraid you'll be appearing in court as planned. We'll be wanting to make the necessary preparations. No! Well, and so, once again, Soseki-san found himself having to take the dock in the Old Bailey. Whether his room was haunted or whether he was just terribly unlucky, I knew I had no choice. The following day I would represent him in court, and do my utmost to break the curse that blinded him. All right. Let's get right down to it, shall we? The Old Bailey. This place always makes me feel strange. I seem to get chills down my spine and break out in a nervous sweat all at the same time. Well, I didn't think I'd be back here so soon. That's my line. Good morning. Ah, good morning, Mr. Natsume. It was only 2 days ago that I was declared not guilty here. Yes, we somehow managed to prove he didn't stab Miss Green in the back. But now this. Another morning, another murder. And here I am again in this hellhole. Keep coming. Court! I'm beginning to think he's right. It does seem as though he's cursed. Mr. Naruhodo, I'm afraid I have bad news. Oh. Hi. Mr. Natsume, good morning. Ah, yes, morning. So, here we are again. Yes, again. It's about you, isn't it? The bad news. Judicial Assistant, Mr. Miss Mikitoba Esquires. What's the bad news? Oh dear. You heard, did you? You're coming shouting at the top of your voice. You people can't help hearing what you guys say. Oh, I am sorry. You've done nothing wrong, Mr. Zato. Now, what is it? Well, it seems that the prosecution in today's trial, Van Zieks, will be led by Lord Berg Van Zieks. Van Zieks? Ah! Oh no. Oh no. The Reaper is back. The so-called Reaper of the Bailey. Most legendary prosecutor in the land. Lord Vlad Dracula himself. In the trial 2 days ago, he pursued Soseki-san and I relentlessly. Of course, by the skin of our teeth, we managed to pull through, but still. Perhaps Mr. Natsume's acquittal in the last trial wasn't the end of the matter, after all. Yes, I know what you're thinking. Legend of the Reaper, that says. Nothing can save a person in the dock when Lord Van Zieks is the prosecutor. Oh no. pulled back into the dock. Even if the person is found not guilty, the accused will meet a mysterious end one way or another. I've experienced it firsthand. Oh, yep. Man we successfully defended met the most terrifying end after his acquittal. Right here at the Old Bailey. Ah, do I have to put up with those ice-cold eyes boring into my soul again? Cursed by evil spirits, now by the Reaper. Petrifying, perils, potentially. Potentially? Oh, if it's potentially, at least you appear to have hope, Mr. Natsume. Local student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Yes? I'm innocent. You have to believe me. You more than anyone know. Don't worry. I'll be your steadfast ally every step of the way in this battle. I promise. This promises to be a hard battle, I fear. Indeed, we do not know where we stand. Well, the trial is scheduled to begin shortly. We should move into the courtroom. Let's go. Oh, yes, I forgot to say. Afraid he won't be able to make it. Mr. Sholmes, I mean. That's probably for the best. Oh? If he were here, I might be tempted to rely on his help. That could be seen as a weakness. If Lord Van Zieks were to notice, he'd prey on it mercilessly. At least that's my gut feeling. Ah, Mr. Naruhodo. You're right. Yes, you're so right. You're off, King. Oh, well said, locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Well said. I swear on this sword at my side, and on the spirit of Cosma that it harbors. And the spirit of Cosma on my shoulder. I'll show it what a Japanese lawyer can do. I'll set you free. With honor. Oh, yes. Why does it feel like the whole... I'd say that whole bit about not relying on Sholmes' help is a reference to the unspeakable story, but that didn't happen yet in this scope. Who's on the jury? In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is ready. The defense is ready, my lord. Readiness for the trial, my learned Nipponese friend, is not what the defense needs. What you need is readiness for your inevitable defeat. It's not just in my imagination, it's really there. Lord Van Zieks has such an animosity towards us Japanese for some reason. It was some time ago now that he first became known as the Reaper of the Bailey, I believe. These past 2 years he hasn't appeared in court at all. Yet now he's back at the courtroom. Though for some reason, only when I'm defending. This Reaper, with his curious disdain for us Japanese, is a prosecutor shrouded in mystery. Still, this isn't the time to be pondering that. I have to concentrate on Soseki-san's trial. Furthermore, I now call upon the 6 ladies and gentlemen of the jury. You have been chosen at random to represent the will of the people in this trial. Are you ready to fulfill your duty? Absolutely. I had a feeling this larrikin isn't before. You again? I must say that I feel especially ruthless on days when my hat refuses to sit right. Oh, well, I'd rather like to know how you wear. Rather like how you're wearing your hat. I think the ruthless look is very fetching, actually. I need to be somewhere at 10 o'clock. I have a very important meeting. Let's make this quick. Well, that's right, Joan Garrideb was the juror number 4 previously. I couldn't agree more. Need to take home 5 bob tonight or the missus will go through the roof. Oh, may the Lord show us all the light they hear, and lead his flock to a righteous verdict. The British jury system is so very different to our own, isn't it? It's quite extraordinary to think that the power of judgment is in the hands of 6 members of the public, and that the judge can only pass sentence when all jurors are in agreement about the defendant's guilt. 6 citizens of London, chosen at random, or at least that's the idea. prosecution would draw attention to the fact that the accused was on trial here but 2 days ago. Accordingly, where possible, the same jurors have been asked to return for duty today. That doesn't seem fair at all. That doesn't seem fair and impartial whatsoever freaking ever. But that's the point. Very well, let us commence the trial. Lord Van Seeks, your opening statement, please. It's also entirely possible that they just didn't want to bother making all these other small characters for this. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it is not the intent of the prosecution to cast doubt over your past decision. However, the innocent verdict afforded to this eccentric Nipponese before has had dire consequences. Yeah, this is blatantly manipulative. Did the accused repent for his wrongdoing in that affair? Far from it. His repent for his wrongdoing that he was innocent of. Instead, he used his freedom to perpetrate a most blood-curdling crime. Namely that of the attempted murder of his neighboring lodger, an innocent Englishman. To explain the circumstances of this crime, the prosecution calls its first witness to the stand. Oh, K-Bob. Detective responsible for investigating this scene and the accused himself. Well, here we go. Witnesses, your names and occupations, please. Yes, sir. Miles Gregson, Detective Inspector at Scotland Yard's Homicide Division. Soseki Natsume from the Empire of Japan. The government ordered me to come here as a student to study your language and culture. Mr. Natsume. Yes, my lord. Sir. I'm quite sure I'm not mistaken. That you swore an oath never to set foot in my courtroom again. Remember it as if it were yesterday. The day before, in fact, my lord. But close enough. Oh, believe me, this is the last place I want to be. Inspector, let's hear from you first. Explain the case for the court. Right you are, sir. The incident occurred at the Garadeb household where the defendant has lodgings. The ground floor room of the victim, Mr. William Shamspeare. The defendant has already admitted to visiting the victim on the night in question. Mr. Shamspeare collapsed in his room as a result of poisoning by strychnine. Oh. It was found the following morning when the landlord, suspecting something was wrong, broke down the door. This means, I presume, that the door to the victim's room was locked at the time of the incident. Correct, my lord. It was locked from the inside, making entry to or exit from the room impossible. Though the victim, Mr. Shamspeare, lives to tell the tale, very nearly didn't. That man was halfway to heaven when we first found him. I was the first officer on the scene, my lord. I have a photographic print here that I took at the time to show how it looked. Yes, a chilling scene indeed. The man looks very much deceased. That's right. Everyone present believed that's exactly what he was. A big puddle against the wall there. Very well, let's accept this photographic print as evidence for the court. Alright. Now then, Mr. Natsume. Yes. As the defendant, do you have anything to say at this juncture? They're haunted. Haunted by evil spirits. Good gracious, what's haunted? My lodgings! There's been a whole series of strange happenings at my lodgings. The tenant before me died in mysterious circumstances. Woman was stabbed by no one on the street outside. Maybe was poisoned. And me? What about me? I've really been killed countless times. Killed, Mr. Natsume? How? Even on that fateful night it happened. When I returned to Mr. Shamspeare's room, lit my gas stove and climbed to bed, but before long, the stove went out, and somebody tried to kill me. You must always extinguish all fires before retiring for the night, Mr. Natsume. It's so cold. Everybody knows what freeze. Point is, I didn't poison my neighbor. Oh, why am I being accused of this? Why is my existence so cursed? Genuinely feel bad for the guy. Thank you, witnesses. I believe I have a reasonably clear picture of events. Disregarding everything you were just saying there, that's me. If I could raise one more point, my lord. One more conclusive point. Conclusive? Go on. Fortunately, the victim, Mr. Shamspeare, has regained consciousness after his ordeal, and he has named the true culprit. Poison consumed by the victim was administered in a cup of tea that he drank on the night in question. Tea, my lord, that was brought to the victim's room by the accused. The accused? Oh, good grief! Order! Order! Yes, that's the crux of this whole case. If Soseki-san is innocent, then why? Why has the victim accused him? Well, Mr. Natsume, what have you to say to this accusation? That evening, yes, I did take some freshly brewed tea with me when I visited Mr. Shamspeare's room as a gift. The like water pump outside always freezes at night, so I bought bottled water especially to make it. And this is the result. Never will I touch tea again. Never. The public pump was frozen, you say? That's not information we've heard before. That will do, thank you. Now, according to our laws, the defense must have the opportunity to cross-examine the witnesses at least once. Therefore, I call upon these witnesses for a more formal testimony. I presume the prosecution has no objection. None whatsoever, my lord. Good. Then you will give your account of events on the night in question to the court now. Yes, my lord. And that's a good point to sign off.